Afraid of his love. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear involves torment. But he who fears has not been made perfect in love. And so I titled this video, Afraid of His Love, because I've seen people in the world that resist God, and they would rather be attracted to hate. They would rather persecute their enemies. And sadly to say, I've seen Christians come against other Christians because when it comes down to it, the love of God, loving God also means that as we obey Him, we love Him, that we will have to change our position. We will have to challenge our pride. And it is prideful. And we've all done this, okay? That's why we need to have compassion and love those, even Christian brothers and sisters, who rail against each other. And, I've seen some of them even call curses down on others and use the gospel and turn it around, to actually run down the church, run down brothers and sisters. And are they afraid of His love? It doesn't seem to be that they're being made perfect, that they are being perfected in His love if they're afraid of His love. Because if we're afraid of God's love, we need to embrace God and His love, because He only means good things for us. He only intends for us to change. And yes, it is painful. It is not easy to put down that pride. It is not easy to listen to a brother and sister when they confront you, when they rebuke you, when they come and they say, you know what? The very word that you are using and the way you're acting is just not godly. I want to take you to the word and show you that. And so when people are confronted with the word and they actually choose hate, or they choose to rail against others, now I'm talking about brothers and sisters against each other, but also it would be the world. It would be people that don't even believe. They don't even know it, but they're resisting the one who is love. And it's strange. You might say, how could this be? It is. And it is because the heart is deceitfully wicked. Who could know it? And even believers, even you and me, could fall into, if we're not careful. We're supposed to be guided and moved and given boldness in God's love. There's a healthy respect, a healthy fear of God, but that's out of reverence. That's not it's holy fear. That's not out of the kind of fear that leads to condemnation and torment. And there are groups and there are people out there that actually lay burdens on their brothers and sisters. They actually, condemn them, and they're legalistic, and that's wrong. And we, when we confront them, a lot of times they even get more angry. And I believe, and I do believe, that they are afraid of God's love, because God's love will change them if they let Him. And that's something, let Him. We let God, God's given us that choice. So the people, check your heart and see if you're railing against a brother and sister, and if it's gone too far, and you're passionate about what you believe in, but you might be off the mark. That's sad, isn't it? I mean, I've seen this. And so what I'm doing is I'm saying what others have said too, that a person who chooses to come down on out of anger and hatred and call other Christians enemies of God, this isn't right. And so I believe they are afraid of God's love. They're afraid to be changed by God's love. They're afraid to be perfected by God's love. Because when we're being perfected by God's love, it's not something like all you need is love. This is God's love. This is the love of the cross. This is the love of the man, the God-man who picked up the towel, who washed his disciples' feet. This is the God-man that says, I call you friend. That one who lays down his life for another, I call you friend. And so, yes, we have to make hard changes. But so I'm rebuking and confronting those that would do this, and I do this in love. But I'm also I'm trying to warn you also that warn. We have to love even those that rail against us. We want to love those. It is the love of God that draws us close to God and to each other. So people that are afraid of God's love, have compassion on them. Don't fall into the dynamics of having to fight toe to toe with them. We know, we're persuaded in who we believe in, and that He's able to keep it until that day. So again, love God, love each other, and don't be afraid. Be made perfect in God's love. We are not going to be afraid of fear and torment. We're saved. So that's the message for today, and I pray that that you will be blessed. And when people that you deal with are railing against you, they're afraid to receive God's love. They think that they have God's love, but this love is turned into something else. It's not a love. I understand passion. I understand really being passionate about the gospel. But to come against brothers and sisters out of anger and meanness, it's not the way of the cross. It's not the way of Jesus. God bless you, my friend.